Therefore do not be afraid of them. Nothing is concealed that will not be revealed, nor secret that will not be known. What I say to you in the darkness, speak in the light. What you hear whispered, proclaim on the housetops. The third prophecy of Fatima is one of the most curious predictions related to the church, and it's time to reveal. The secret of Our Lady has been hidden for a long time, because those who hold the secret in their hands keep saying that this is not the time to reveal everything. It was not until 2000 that Pope John Paul II revealed what was hidden inside the sealed envelope about the secret of Fatima. These secrets are said to be related to hell, World Wars I and II, and the persecutions that Christians faced in the 20th century. So, how accurate are the prophecies of Our Lady Fatima? And why is 2024 the time when everything is said to come true? Follow us in the following video to reveal all that has been buried after century. Our Lady of Fatima's 3 Secrets. Our Lady of Fatima is the title given to the Blessed Virgin Mary in connection with her apparitions to 3 shepherd children in Fatima, Portugal. Our Lady of Fatima told the shepherd children to pray the rosary daily for the end of the war, which is happening in World War I. Mary continued to appear once a month for 6 months to the 3 children, Lucia, Jacinta, and Francisco. In October 1930, the Bishop of Leiria Fatima approved the visions as worthy of belief. In 1930, the Catholic Church declared the children's visions worthy of belief. And today, Fatima is one of the most important Marian shrines in the world, with approximately 6 million pilgrims visiting the shrine each year. Many pilgrims visit the shrine in Fatima to celebrate the Day of Our Lady on 13th May, the date that marks the anniversary of the first apparition, and 13th October. Pilgrims to Fatima receive a special blessing and they pray for healing or other special intentions. Back to 1917, over the course of 6 months, the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to 3 children in Portugal. The most well-known of these children is named Lucia Santos, and she was with a pair of cousins during these apparitions named Jacinta and Francisco Marto. The reason Lucia is more famous is specifically because of the secrets and her revealing of the secrets at the request of the local bishop. As news of the apparitions grew, during the 6 months they occurred, many people naturally asked for some kind of proof. So, during the final apparition of Fatima, in October of 1917, Mary had the sun dance in the sky, an event that was reported in newspapers and witnessed by tens of thousands of people. But this is not what gets people's imaginations inflamed. It is the secrets. The children, especially Lucia, maintained that Our Lady gave visions to the children which they were to keep secret. These visions were given to the children during one of the middle visits, so not the first visit, nor the final visit. While siblings Francisco and Jacinta Marto sadly died as children, during the Spanish flu pandemic, Lucia dos Santos would later become a Carmelite nun and live to the age of 97. She passed away in 2005. 23 years after the events themselves, Lucia was ordered by the local bishop of Fatima to write the secrets, and she willingly did so for the first 2. However, she was not convinced that she should release the contents of the 3rd secret. The bishop ordered her under holy obedience to do so, and so she wrote out the secret and placed it in a sealed envelope that was not to be opened for 19 years, or 1960 when she said it would be clearer to understand. Francisco and Jacinta were beatified by Pope John Paul II in 2000, becoming the youngest non-martyred children to be beatified by the Roman Catholic Church. Coinciding with the centenary celebrations of the Fatima apparitions, the siblings were canonized by Pope Francis in 2017. Over a series of 6 apparitions, Our Lady would give the children 3 secrets or visions, known as the 3 Secrets of Fatima. The first secret, or vision, was of hell. Lucia wrote that the Blessed Virgin showed the children what hell was like, complete with the suffering experienced by the souls who are there. The vision lasted only a second, but the children say that it was almost unbearable. It led to a great trust in the promise of Mary to lead her devotees to Christ to save souls from this great, eternal suffering. In the vision revealing the second secret, the Blessed Virgin shows the young children a vision in which they learn that World War I, which is going on during the time of the visions, will end. However, another world war will ensue under the papacy of Pope Pius XI, who reigned from 1922 until 1939, unless people stop offending God and Russia is converted. The Virgin asked that Russia be consecrated to her Immaculate Heart. And you know what a coincidence happened? It was World War II that began in 1939, just as Our Lady had predicted. And that leads us to the third secret, the one that gets all the attention. Sister Lucia didn't want to share the third secret, but was asked to write it down by the Bishop of Leiria, and this document remained sealed until 2000. The third secret of Fatima was finally disclosed in 2000, on the day of the beatification of Francisco and Jacinta Marto. Lucia wrote, "The third part of the secret revealed at the Cova da Iria Fatima on 13 July 1917. I write in obedience to you, my God, who command me to do so through His Excellency the Bishop of Leiria and through your most holy mother and mine." After the two parts which I have already explained, at the left of Our Lady and a little above, we saw an angel with a flaming sword in his left hand. Flashing, it gave out flames that looked as though they would set the world on fire, but they died out in contact with the splendor that Our Lady radiated towards him from her right hand. Pointing to the earth with his right hand, the angel cried out in a loud voice, "Penance, penance, penance." And we saw in an immense light, that is, God. Something similar to how people appear in a mirror when they pass in front of it. A bishop dressed in white. We had the impression that it was the Holy Father. Other bishops, priests, men and women, religious going up a steep mountain, at the top of which there was a big cross of rough-hewn trunks, as of a cork tree with the bark. Before reaching there, the Holy Father passed through a big city, half in ruins and half trembling with halting step, afflicted with pain and sorrow. He prayed for the souls of the corpses he met on his way. Having reached the top of the mountain, on his knees at the foot of the big cross, he was killed by a group of soldiers who fired bullets and arrows at him. And in the same way there died one after another the other, bishops, priests, men and women, religious, and various lay people of different ranks and positions. Beneath the two arms of the cross, there were two angels, each with a crystal aspersorium in his hand, in which they gathered up the blood of the martyrs, and with it sprinkled the souls that were making their way to God. The secret of a bishop in white that was presumed to be the Pope who was killed by having bullets and arrows fired at him was naturally assigned to the failed assassination attempt on the life of Pope John Paul II. But some people claim that this cannot be the event, as the Pope did not die in the attempt, and the bishop in white in the vision does die. Therefore, some claim that the Pope being killed is a prophecy of a future event. However, at the time the third secret text was released, then Cardinal Ratzinger, one of the 20th century's greatest theologians, who would become Pope Benedict XVI, wrote an accompanying text. In it, he writes that the secret will probably prove disappointing or surprising after all the speculation it has stirred. No great mystery is revealed, nor is the future unveiled. He writes that the purpose of the vision is not to show a film of an irrevocably fixed future. Its meaning is exactly the opposite. It is meant to mobilize the forces of change in the right direction. Therefore, we must totally discount fatalistic explanations of the secret, such as, for example, the claim that the would-be assassin of May 13, 1981, was merely an instrument of the divine plan guided by Providence, and could not therefore have acted freely, or other similar ideas in circulation. Rather, the vision speaks of dangers and how we might be saved from them. Marian apparitions. Now we will talk about the appearances of Our Lady of Fatima to the children in preparation for the sixth appearance and the revelation of secrets. The first Marian apparition of Fatima, May 13, 1917. Mary asks the children to return on the 13th each month for 6 months. Mary tells the children they will suffer much, but will reach heaven. She then asks the children to say the rosary every day to bring peace to the world. The second appearance is on June 13, 1917. Mary asks the children to add the Fatima prayer to the end of each decade of the rosary. They ask for her to take them to heaven, and she replies, "Soon I will take Jacinta and Francisco, but Lucia is to stay a while longer." The third is on July 13, 1917. Mary shows the children a vision of hell and reveals that God wishes for there to be a great devotion, the Mary's Immaculate Heart, to save souls from hell. She then predicted the Second World War and the persecution of the faithful in Russia, warning that without prayer and consecration of Russia to her Immaculate Heart, Russia will spread her errors throughout the entire world, fomenting wars and persecution of the Church. The fourth is on August 19, 1917. The local administrator imprisons the children to prevent them from making their appointment with Mary. 6 days later, she appears to them in a pasture and asks them, "Pray, pray very much, and make sacrifices for sinners. For many souls go to hell because there is no one to pray for them." The fifth is on September 13, 1917. A crowd witnesses white rose petals falling from the sky and then disappearing as Lucia asked Our Lady of Fatima to cure the sick. She replies that only some will be cured, while the Lord has no confidence in others who were not healed. The sixth is also the memorable appearance O's Our Lady of Fatima is on October 13, 1917. 70,000, 100,000 people witness the miracle of the sun from up to 10 miles away. Secular news reporters present for the miracle reported unexplainable phenomenon. Mary reveals herself as the Lady of the Rosary and says, "People must amend their lives, ask forgiveness for their sins, and not offend our Lord anymore, for he is already too much offended." The children were erranted to meet Our Lady of Fatima. There were many adults at that time, but why did Our Lady of Fatima choose to reveal herself to 3 children? That's not a coincidence, guys, and not every child will receive such grace from Our Lady. The life of Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, little shepherds of Fatima, is a history of grace and mercy. In these children, we see in action the same paradoxical force which marks and acts in the whole history of salvation. The infinite disproportion between the history of the proud and powerful, with their schemes, strategies, and conflicts, and the history of the humble who, in the truth of their existence, are invited by God to be a leaven of transformation of humanity. As seers of God's mercy, the little shepherds will make known the message by them welcomed through their simple lives. They are chosen to be witnesses of the presence of God's love, of the God who is love, irradiating and making transparent to the world his merciful face that will turn their lives into a reflection of that light which is God himself. In the shade of an oak, the Lady made them see themselves in this light. Born in Aljustrel, a small place of Fatima parish in the early 20th century, the brothers Francisco and Jacinta and their cousin Lucia grow in a modest family environment in a harsh, quiet, and remote village. They did not know how to read or write, and little would actually know about geography, history, and world wisdom beyond the horizon and mountains. They received a very simple Christian upbringing and education as it was expected in the secluded environment in which they lived. Lucia's mother introduced her daughter and nephews to catechesis, and Lucia herself, a little older than her cousins, will teach them the biblical stories and the prayers she had learned from her mother. However, despite the simplicity of their Christian initiation, their parents gave them a living example of committed faith, the Sunday participation in the Eucharist, prayer in family, truth and respect for all, charity towards the poor and the needy. Lucia was a mindful child, attentive to God's love. The inner desire to be fully wrapped in the embrace of God will be the continuous line of the path she will follow. Francisco, with his contemplative gaze feeding the inner silence, stared at nature as one who feels the creation and plunges into the beauty of the Creator. He was fascinated by both the sunrise and sunset, which was his preferred candle, the candle of the Lord. Jacinta had a special preference for the candle of Our Lady, the moon, which did not hurt the eyes. The little girl accompanied very closely her cousin Lucia, for whom she had great affection. She embraced the lambs, called them by name, and walked among them, carrying on in her bosom to do as our Lord. They lived intensely, as only children can do. These children lived a simple life, devoted all their love to God sincerely, without unnecessary thoughts, and received the divine response. In a 1916 spring afternoon, after their simple prayer, the little shepherds saw, over the trees, a light whiter than snow in the shape of a young man, transparent as crystal when the sun shines through it. At this moment, nothing would make them assume that light in human form was the herald of God's peace, that would initiate them in their school of spirituality and prayer. It was something totally unexpected, and the little shepherds felt caught up in the contemplation of that immense light, plunged into an intense atmosphere in which the strength of the presence of God made them to be absorbed and struck dumb with amazement. The angel of peace visited them 3 times in spring and summer of 1916. His words, deeply impressed upon the minds of the children as a light which made them understand who God is, how He loves them and desires to be loved, refer to God's heart, speak of a heart attentive to the voice of the humble, for which He has a plan of mercy. The angel invites the children to the profound adoration of the Most Holy Trinity, to associate themselves with the sacrifice of Christ in the reconciliation of all in God. Afterwards, He offers them the body and blood of Christ, this first and foremost gift, in whose light they will be asked to offer themselves in sacrifice for all ungrateful men, for all those who do not know how to live in an attitude of thanksgiving. Since then, the little shepherds will live plunged in this worship of God, with a discreet but confident and bold desire to turn their lives into a gift offered to the Creator in behalf of others. This will be their vocation. When Our Lady, more brilliant than the sun, breaks out on May 13, 1917, and enters into the lives of 3 children. For 6 months, every 13th, the Virgin Mary will renew this invitation, on base of which the 3 shepherds will become humble witnesses of God's heart in the complexity of a suffering world. Are you willing to offer yourselves to God and bear all the sufferings He wills to send you as an act of reparation for the sins by which He is offended and of supplication for the conversion of sinners? In a succession of images unveiled by Our Lady, the little shepherds grasped the idea that God's heart is caring for the human history, that sin consists in being indifferent to God's heart, that God is merciful and is always in search of man entangled in his dramas and misfortunes, and that those who embrace the light of God's heart are invited to participate, by prayer and sacrifice, in His care for humanity. On the first immersion in that light, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, still savoring the echoes of the depth they had experienced, decided not to tell anything of what happened. But Jacinta, strongly affected by the beauty of the Lady and full of an irrepressible joy, cannot refrain herself. She is the first herald and messenger of this newfound divine joy communicated by the Lady, and like the disciples of Emmaus who, in front of the Paschal mystery, had a burning feeling in the chest, she will confess to her friends, "I had inside me something that would not let me be silent." The news of the apparitions of the Lady of the Rosary soon will make its way, and the number of those who, as pilgrims, come to the Cova de Iria will certainly increase. And so the children will have much to suffer at the hands of those who doubted or opposed them. Already in the first encounter, almost as if to confirm the children fiat, the lady had assured them that they would have much to suffer, as was the case with prophets. The vocation of the little shepherds accepts suffering as an integral part of their mission. They will be for many accused of fraud and greed, even their own families, except perhaps the father of Francisco and Jacinta, fear they are spreading a lie and are afraid for their life. At home and everywhere, they are subjected to visits and to incessant and strenuous interrogations. But the greatest trial and affliction would occur on August 13th. On the morning of that day, the children are surprised by the visit of the municipality of Aurem Administrator, a well-known Mason and freethinker, after having questioned them in their home and at the rectory, because he wanted at all costs to know the secret they insisted on keeping concealed. The administrator, in a tricky and deceitful way, proposes to lead them to the Cova de Iria, but in fact conveys them to Aurem. There he insists on pressing the kids to unveil their secret, and even reach the point of locking them, for a while, in a cell with other prisoners, and of uttering the threat of making them fry in olive oil. Francisco's innocent reply radiates peace and joy. If they kill us, it's all the same, we'll go to heaven. The life of the shepherd children no more ceased to be paced and measured by God's heart. The fiat uttered to the lady more brilliant than the sun was constantly renewed by the innocent desire of Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta to intensify in their lives the passionate affection for God. The presence of God became, for them, sacred ground and, like Moses, barefoot in front of the burning bush, their intimacy is transmuted into an act of adoration in the presence of that inner light, which is God, which burns without consuming. That's the ineffable secret of strengthening them. This sacred bush burning in their chest awakens them, as once did to Moses, for the mission of caring for those who live in the slavery of sin and ingratitude. And so, in sight of all others, they are the presence of God's light, and also, before God, mediators in behalf of all others. Their lives become a constant offering of everything they are and do, however slight, for the love of God and in favor of sinners. Francisco, Jacinta, and Lucia's lives assume this vocation. That is, inseparably contemplative, compassionate, and announcing. But each of them will take on, with a particular and greater accent, the specific nature of their calling. Francisco, moved by his inner eye sensitive to the Spirit's light, listens to the call to worship and contemplation. Little Jacinta translates the joy, purity, and generosity of faith, welcomed as an offering of God's heart, and diffused through the chores and trifles of her life as a simple girl into a sacrifice acceptable to God in behalf of humanity. Lucia welcomes the mission to evangelize, to make known the good news of God's mercy, responding to the merciful God's desire to consecrate the world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Lucia is the witness who quenches herself in order that light of the secret of God's mercy shine without interruption, as already definitively revealed by the sun and remembered at Fatima. In her, we can catch a glimpse of the faithful witness of a gift that is accepted and offered to the world. Francisco and Jacinta's lives were brief and simple. They only lived from love and for love, which was revealed to them in the light offered by the hands of such a beautiful lady. And that was all. At the end of 1918, Francisco and Jacinta are taken by a bronchopneumonia epidemic. The lady had assured them they would go to heaven, and very soon, and so the children understood that their time was coming. Who would suspect that so brief and simple lives were capable of such love? Live honestly and love God with all your wholeness like three children. The little shepherds lived God's passion for humanity, and so they were chosen and constituted as prophets of God's love, and offered and proposed by Him to the world as children shepherds after His own heart. Our Lady of Fatima urgently desired for all of faithful to pray daily for the salvation of poor sinners and for the whole world. That message from our Mother Mary is a challenge, no matter where you are in your own personal prayer life, to go deeper, to pray often and with greater fervor. Some of us may not pray all that often except when in great need. Now, it is time to dust off that rosary that has been sitting on the shelf since it was received at confirmation. Others of us may have a deep devotion to the rosary already, in which case the message of Fatima calls us to approach our prayer life with a new ardor. This new ardor would look differently for each individual, but may include things like adopting new devotional practices, recommitting ourselves to attentiveness during times of prayer, or perhaps even increasing the frequency of times dedicated to the Lord and Our Lady in prayer. But remember this: prophecy is not scriptures. Just trust the Lord and we'll be good.